Righto, everybody, boy. It's different intro song today. You can hear it. Jimmy Barnes, working class man, because I'll tell you what, based on what we saw yesterday, that I may or may not have a part in, we are representing the working class heroes of Australia to potentially bring cheaper power to the country. Jeez, what a day. What a day. Go Australia, boys, isn't it?
Go Australia. Mate, we don't believe in coincidences. And I tell you what, mate, you announced your campaign to go to Canberra 2 days ago. What do we have today? Mate, they're just like, they were that scared that, you know, the opposition leaders introduced a big nuclear agenda.
Look, there's a bit of work in the shadows that I will go into. But, boys, I've rejigged the notes myself. First up, we're going to talk about the new nuclear policy for the party that isn't elected. That probably won't happen unless they get elected. But don't let that get in the road of a true story.
Mate, you're on a mission to shaft Basil at his job, so you know it might.
Basil who?
If that happens, then the policy will come into effect.
No, stick to the state. I'm going top. I'm going.
Yeah,
I'm here.
He can muck about with that.
Drop the Western. I'm here for Australia. Righto, what else? Got a bit happening in MinRes, and talk about ripping out a good chunk of that Trident royalty that was just bought.
Another classic 4:30, 2 hours after market announcement.
Yeah, some mind shutting, maybe getting. Mate, you know how Alison always talks about capital recycling? This is capital recycling at its finest.
Yes, bloody sounds.
What else we got? Resolute, they rejigged a bit of an agreement they got with Ravenswood, the mine that they sold to EMR.
Yeah.
And we've persuaded Ahmad to join us for our speculation word on the decline about a copper discovery in Queensland that we've been putting into the director's special. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, right. And a bit on it's actually Biox Rob now instead of refractory Rob.
There you go. All right, let's rip in, Matty.
I'll put some met results out. We'll give the old metallurgy a bit of love, because I'll tell you what, my love for uranium has taken it away from metallurgy. But Jesus, holy snapping duck shit, the debate is ramping up in the country, boys. And this is, as I said, on the back of, you know, announcing my intention to effectively save the country, because I am Australia and I believe in the country so much. If you're going to have anyone represent Australia, they have to sound like me.
You are a working class man, Matty.
I am, mate. So, look, as I said, I had a yarn with Duddo the other night about the sort of best steps going forward. And this is what came out yesterday.
The cold rooms can stay on 24/7. We need to make sure that our economy can function 24/7, and we can only do that with a strong baseload power. And today we announced 7 locations that we have looked at in great detail over a long period of time that can host new nuclear sites, and that will be part of an energy mix, obviously with renewables and significant amounts of gas into the system, particularly in the interim period. It will mean that on those end-of-life coal-fired power station sites, we can utilise the existing distribution network. This is a really important point. Labor has promised 28,000 kilometres of new poles and wires. There's no transparency about where that will go, and we've been very clear about the fact that we don't believe in that model. We want to utilise the existing assets that we've got, and the poles and wires that are used at the moment on the coal-fired power station sites can be utilised to distribute the energy generated from the latest generation nuclear reactors.
Hear that, boys? Working in the shadows. 7 nuclear facilities, part of this policy, to propose to be built on which will be former coal-fired power stations, utilising the existing transmission lines. So we've got Lithgow, New South Wales. Geez, tell you what, I had a hockey carnival there once. Cold as a mother-in-law's kiss. It is fucking cold.
They could use some nuclear heat.
That'd be no chance of melting down that one because it's that cold. And you got the Liddell Power Station. That's in
I thought the
Hunter
nuclear
Valley.
line was to never mention meltdowns, mate.
No, well, you physically can't. It's too cold there. So then you got Loy Yang in Victoria's Latrobe Valley, Tarong and Callide in Queensland, Collie in WA, Port Augusta in South Australia. So they've they put you'd say a bit of a consider. So we talked about nuclear power builds the other week, saying China, pretty much everyone in China is getting done in 7 years or less. I think the UAE one's got done in a bit less than 9. Russia are about 6 to 9 years for a new build. So they've said the first 2 power stations could be operating 2035 if they're an SMR or 2037 if they're a standard plant. So one, they've got to get bloody elected and then giving themselves about 12, 13 years to build these things. And interesting that they are going to be funded and owned by the federal government. So
Lots to talk about, hey?
Yeah.
So one of the key points of debate around nuclear that comes to mind is that time frame to build the things is, to an extent dictated by the tape surrounding it. So if you can actually snip some of the tape, it's not the actual building of these things that takes so long. So that's an interesting point. We're talking about...
How do you think that tape would go? Any difference because it is government owned, or would it make it more difficult?
To know.
The rule of thumb I tend to operate by is government owned is slower.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's just like all of the regulations around, who needs to provide consent, who needs to approve it, who has the ability to appeal stuff, and all these different groups get involved and hold shit up. But
but it's like, it's interesting. Like, obviously, there's fucking divisive opinions all across the board, even within the bloody Liberal Party, Labor Party, like with especially I think they said the Bathurst local MP was going to oppose it, which Bathurst is near Lithgow. So like
both MPs on both sides of the aisle in Collie apparently weren't in favour either, which is interesting to read.
But it was just more like the thing, even though we've been harping on about it, but putting it out there, it is definitely one of the most not extreme, but like it's like a generational changing ideology to bring into the country to go nuclear. Like, it is so much different to what we would ever think Australia would be doing.
The 1998 ban was put in place by the Liberal Party, by John Howard back in the day. But we're a long way away from the sort of protests in the street in the 70s, and the debate was very much framed differently back then. It wasn't driven by climate change and reducing emissions. But one of the interesting parts of this is that, remember we were speaking a little while ago, why don't they let private enterprise have a go at this? The likes of BHP trying to power industry have a crack at that, and it's still not something that's come to the fore, is it, Matty?
No, well, I think, and these aren't going to power the whole bloody state. Like, this is a start. So I think it's like, each reactor's a gigawatt or something. So, and I think Snowy Hydro's like, that's 4 gigawatts. So yeah, it's not like you'll still have plenty of opportunity to put shitloads more everywhere, but this is like the start of it. And like, this is going to be mixed with gas, still renewables.
I mean, right now in Western Australia, roughly 30% of our power comes from coal. So you'd be trying to swap out a baseload power generation amount with a much, much, much more emissions light, borderline no emission way of implementing it, right?
I got 2 thoughts about all this. One is just in relation to like why is it important? Why is it kind of a battleground worth even us talking about on our podcast? Because
super important.
It's and we shouldn't shy away from it, because the reality is the price of our energy will determine our competitiveness. It has so many flow through effects into every single industry in Australia,
and cost of living,
mining being one of them. We talk about the way that we're losing competitiveness in some ways, be that via permitting, be that by cost of energy, be that via inflation and wages, etc. Well, energy drives all of that stuff. And then if you just think of like the huge kind of debate that's happened in the energy policy landscape, a lot of anyone that's been kind of paying close attention to the argument sort of brought forward mostly by Aidan Morrison, in his critique of the Gen Cost report. It was like all of this modelling kind of that was, the foundation of being the fighting point on pro renewables as being like this huge renewables plan, ignored the cost of transmission. And it's just like the fucking, who was it, CSIRO or someone bloody wrote this report that's like this wonk that just can't do fucking math. But like the implementation of nuclear where existing, coal-fired power stations used to be, just like, mate, a fucking 5-year-old could tell you that makes sense. Like, of course there's going to be opposition and it'll be hard and all that sort of stuff given dynamics, but mate, that just makes so much fucking sense.
Well, what was it? Was it saying Canada's parts of Canada, the nuclear areas is it the power prices are a third or a quarter of Australia? Something like that. Like significantly lower, the prices.
Yeah, I mean, they've got hydro capacity around them. The other key part of that debate in the report, to my understanding, is the discussion on capacity versus generation. And, the sort of classic expression of the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. You need to incorporate in the cost for the renewables the cost of getting power when you're, out of renewable power. That needs to be factored in, right? Otherwise, what are you going to do? Be without power for, large chunks of the day? That doesn't make sense. So
yeah, and it probably goes beyond mining a bit, Trav. Imagine if lower power prices could rejuvenate manufacturing in Australia, and you talk about competitiveness.
Yeah,
power that just might be that margin that might take things from friggin' liquidation into profitability.
We have abundant, wonderful natural resources in that country, and to the extent that we have them, that gives us a competitive advantage in mining. Now, what prohibits Australia from having any real credible downstream is that we are not competitive at turning those raw materials into the downstream products because of technical expertise, but also because we don't have internationally competitive cost of energy, which is the major input cost into transforming raw materials into anything else.
Yeah, and because wages are probably always going to be high, but one thing you could control is power. So it's funny, mate. You imagine the friggin' vertical integration that you could create in Australia, and before I die, I am going to make it happen. The largest resource of uranium in the world is in Australia. Couple that with conversion and enrichment facilities that then feed nuclear, wouldn't even have to leave the fucking country. Now that is in Australia I want to die in eventually.
Yeah, the point that the government would pay for it is to an extent concerning on my part, at least, though. You look at how much the costs have blown out in the UK, these things blow out massively. And again, we don't know exactly what the numbers on what we're comparing it to haven't been put out perfectly, but I don't have full confidence in any sort of government being, non-partisan here, that it could be done super, super cheaply. So you would want to see
private-public partnership.
Yeah. You want to make the process as competitive as possible, so there is super, super strong incentive to do this in as an economic way forward as possible. But I think it is a step in the right direction that this has become a key battleground of the coming election, and that the debate, putting putting nuclear power on the table as a part of the debate is a step in the right direction.
I think we remember the NBN rollout. I think they initial budgeted 40 billion, I think, from memory, and I'm pretty sure that blew out because anyone contracted into the government when they know they've got a fucking massive budget, not competitive, JD. When you get private involved, things change when you got multiple people bidding on it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, a good first step for what will probably be about a year of debate.
Oh, shit, yeah. And this is going to be so divisive in the country.
Especially in the next year. And we're going to have a conversation, an interview come out tomorrow on power costs. And it's going to hit people in the face sooner or later, what they are paying for their power and the cost of living. And that is going to get people talking about alternatives and strategies to drive down those costs. And it's going to make the conversation about nuclear power come to the fore. And then you can, hopefully in a proper way understand the costs of each side of the equation and have a good hearty debate about it and see which way works out to be best for Australia.
And mate, you think of so a lot of the big companies that have big industrial kind of high energy sort of applications in this country. Think of Alcoa, for example, right? Massive sort of energy input into what they do. Their contracts, they'll lock in their cost of energy over a long period of time. They all roll off in 2034, right?
Yeah,
They'll all roll off. and then all of a sudden, guess what? Is it going to be fucking? Are they going to make any fucking money? You know, what does that mean for an entire industry? Like, and think of all of everything that flows through into. So there's just like a whole bunch of stuff. You just if you kick the can down the road too much on energy, you're just fucking wake up with your head in the bitumen.
Now, I think this is going to be the headline topic going into the election, and he's obviously pulled it now because I think the election has to happen. Federal one has to happen for September next year, but. If Labor was sitting pretty, they could call it by the end of the year if they wanted. So this is they're getting this out now. The battle starts. Oh, mate, I can't wait to get me free sausage sanger at the bloody bid when you go put your boat in.
Well, when's pre-selection for your seat, mate? You putting your hand up?
Yeah. Oh, look, I think I've got about 5 missed calls here, but I'll get the show done first. I reckon, Duts, if you're listening, mate. You come over here and let's talk.
Get Albo as well. Let's have the round table.
I reckon
we've got 2 empty seats.
Dutto and Pauline on Money of Mine. I don't know if I could sit in the same room with Albo.
I'm not sure I could sit in the same room with a few of those characters.
You'll be right, JD. I just want to see him have a dingo with us.
Matty, I'm really loving how much you're embracing uranium Twitter.
I'm so close to going premium.
You found your place.
I'm even getting memes put up about me.
How good's this? This is pretty special one, I reckon.
Check it out. Imararan. I think I got it now. Imararan. Bloody shout out to, I think it's JB's lost son, said, welcome to the brotherhood. It's just bloody brilliant. I'm absolutely stoked. I'll tell you what, if this nuclear thing happens, I think we need Brooks Energy. I think that is the next logical fucking subsidiary of the Brooks Group. With this nuclear renaissance coming, well, Brooks Airways is taken off. Brooks Equipment supplying the yellow gear. The OG Brooks hire, logically, I think the next one is Brooks Energy. Yellow logo, yellow energy. I think Stewie Brooks, like me, mate, I think the country needs you, and I think Brooks Energy has to set up the supply chain and logistics to assist with Australia's possible transition to nuclear power. So I'm putting it out there now. And I reckon it needs to happen. You
need, and that transition is going to involve a lot of stuff that you need Brooks for. It's like, mate, fucking, you can't just...
Yeah, well, you can have the other subsidiaries to support the Brooks Energy, but gee, holy snap and duck shit, won't that company take over? Imagine the bastards trying to IPO them, considering a friggin' bloody a mob that does nachos and burritos just IPO'd for $3 billion or whatever.
I was literally about to say, I hope you're the banker on the IPO for Brooks or for the sale process, because the blue sky is bloody phenomenal in this business.
Mate, isn't it?
Also has a yellow logo, by the way.
That's interesting.
Wouldn't go as well on a reactor.
Radioactive nachos. Yeah, but anyway, I'm just putting the call out there. So anyway, righto, next up, boys. What we were supposed to talk about at the start of the show before I rearranged everything, MinRes. What has MinRes been up to, JD?
Alrighty, a classic 4:30 announcement. They are shutting the Yilgarn iron ore operations. These are the ops that sort of sit around Southern Cross, a bit north of Southern Cross on the way between Perth and Kalgoorlie. So made up of 5 mines. Now, the reasons they highlighted are the limited mine lives, significant capital costs, and pretty long lead times on developing new resources. So operations are going to end at the end of the year. FY24 guidance was set in and around 8 million tonnes, and the FOB cost guidance was Aussie $103. So they reported $96 million in underlying EBITDA in the first half of FY24 at a pretty skinny 15% EBITDA margin. And that 15% was the strongest margin they'd done in a little while there. So Youanmi, as we mentioned the other day, that's one of the ops. That was restarted in 2018. And they actually only restarted that after forming an agreement with the WA government to not have to pay royalties on the iron ore they shipped out of there. We didn't get any clear insight on what the price they paid were for that, but Cliffs, the company who previously owned it, did say that it chalked off about $70 million from their closing costs of the operations there. So to give you an indication of what the people out there think of this decision, the stock was flat. I think that tells you quite a bit about how shareholders viewed the significance of these operations. Probably marginally negative NAV on these projects.
Immaterial.
Exactly. Immaterial. And, there might have been signs that we could have picked up on this. Just last week, the West reported that this privately owned Chinese group, Gold Valley, they signed a deal with MacArthur Minerals to mine iron ore about a bit less than 200 kilometres northwest of Kalgoorlie. They were going to truck it and then train it from Kal south. Now, they'd formed an agreement with the Port of Esperance to ship it out of there, which MinRes had a stranglehold on for a long time. Now, the way it was reported was that there was finally going to be competition and two companies exporting iron ore. But it seems like, maybe there's a bit of overlap, but it does seem like MinRes are just going to hand the keys over for that terminal and that export facility to Gold Valley and say best of luck to them.
Yeah, right.
So that Gold Valley was when all the nickel miners were bloody putting their hand up for royalty relief. I reckon I read something about that guy putting his hand up. Yeah, I need royalty relief too.
Just having a go, just like Tianchi the other day.
Just trying to chuck some food on the table,
That's
know?
It. That's it.
So
mate.
what is there? Is this simple, or is there a bit more that meets the eye here, JD?
Well, we know Big Chris, he's very keen on his greater than 20% return on invested capital metric.
Unless it's a lithium shitco.
Well, he'll just bend the numbers, the inputs, and he'll get his 20% one way or another. So,
is it counted as capital if you just buy the shares?
Yeah, it still is.
You can always make it look pretty.
Someone else puts the capital in.
So I just don't think you could argue going forward that the capital that was going to be sunk if they were to expand this was going to earn 20%. So it seems like quite a smart commercial decision to say we're not going to sink any more cash, kind of like Beach the other day, not going to sink any more cash into these assets that just aren't passing the test and aren't earning our expected rate of return. Hopefully we see the employees pick up gigs as Onslow picks up and they, really get to scale up there. But it does seem like a relatively prudent commercial decision on the part of MinRes.
With anything like that, Alison says, or any decision that maybe sort of seems like it's, where did this come from? And there's so many parts of the business that tends to happen all the time because we just forget parts of the business. But I was like, is this consistent with what he said in the past? And I went back to one of the times he's talked about these operations in a recent call. This is from August last year. I'll play now.
I'm was talking to our guys a few weeks ago. I'm really falling out of love with the Yilgarn. What I've said to them is my focus on that would be, unless you can prove me wrong, I think it's got maximum 3 years life left in it. So let's have a look at the capex we're spending and adjust it for that sort of life.
So back then he said it was a maximum 3 years left in these, and he was clearly tapering sustaining capital then already. So kind of is consistent. You look at the cost in the last reporting period, they reported $109 a tonne FOB. So that's super high, right? And with capex kind of signalled to be directed elsewhere back then, that number was probably climbing too. So yeah, kind of makes sense. It probably hasn't come as a surprise to those who are pretty in tune with the business when you think about it. And to your point earlier, Matty, on Deterra. So Deterra acquired the Trident royalty package. That's all going through, blah, blah, blah. 20% of the revenue, the existing revenue of Trident was coming from Youanmi, which is
Youanmi.
Youanmi, fuck. Youanmi.
Youanmi, mate.
What a name. Which, was one of the mines in this Yilgarn.
Yeah, and it's funny, we mentioned Thacker Pass being potentially 40%.
That was 40% of the NAV.
40%.
So NAV is very different to the revenue.
Oh, there's 20% of the revenue.
But the NAV would have been probably not very much, because I reckon the base case they would have tapered mine life.
Oh, because it didn't have much mine life. Yeah.
Another sort of aspect to think about is the closure costs, the rehab costs. Complete thumbsuck. It's in one report came out with $100 to $200 on this one. You'd imagine that would have to be spent over, 2025, 2026. A lot has been made of MinRes's balance sheet. Not something they would want want to be so forthcoming in spending, but maybe they can sort of spread that over a few years. Has to be done at the end of the day. Another takeaway I had was just to be very suspicious of EBITDA, especially as it's kind of reported by MinRes. And I think the term can be quite loose. We had a good chat about this probably about half a year ago or so when Ellison came forward and said all 3 lithium operations are profitable. And what we sort of said at the time was, as far as I remember, was that what are they talking about when they say profitable? Like, are they talking about EBITDA? Are they talking about EBIT? Are they talking about actual profit after tax?
NPAT is what you should, but I think, Chris, it just floats between the two.
Absolutely.
It's like it's NPAT and then it's EBITDA at the same time.
And there's
which you shouldn't be because it's a fucking capital hungry business.
Exactly. There's a huge difference. And I always think of what Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger say. And, Munger just says, EBITDA, just think of it as bullshit earnings. And Buffett,
so true, isn't it?
And Buffett in not quite the Munger way of expressing his opinions, he just says you can't talk about EBITDA in capital hungry, asset heavy businesses because the capex that you spend is super meaningful. And I think in one of the videos he says, who's going to pay that? The fairy godmother. Somebody's got to pay that. You've got to pay it just because it's costs that aren't going to have the corresponding revenue.
Depreciated over a long time doesn't mean it's gone away.
Exactly. Just because the sort of corresponding revenue doesn't come in over that particular year and it's coming in over a couple, you can't just ignore it. So it's a sort of an expression that bankers like to use, but you really got to look under the curtain. And in this case, it's why it's good to follow companies, especially ones that you want to invest in, and get a feel for them because they report in a consistent way. It's sort of how people are, and get a feel for how the company reports because everyone's a bit different, and understand with this company that it can be a bit of a loose expression.
So, JD, you're the finance guru.
I think I got Trav here.
Say you bloody... Oh, no, who would be the most out of you? Who do you reckon's better?
JD is better in everything.
I don't agree with that.
Oh, God, sort it out, you two. I told you, they are blue. No. So if you, say you dump $1 billion, just how this affects this earnings, how this EBITDA can get a bit skewed. Say you dump $1 billion in CapEx and you have to pay the bloody money, but then that CapEx gets depreciated over 10 years. Is that saying, right, the EBITDA says, right, it takes away that CapEx, but only adds, say, 100 million of it in for that year because you're depreciating it over 10 years. Thumb suck.
Yeah, so you match it with the earnings that investment brings in. Yep. So if that is $1 billion sunk into the ground and that's going to help you bring in money over a 10-year period, then you can, if you're doing it in a straight line method, there's different ways of depreciating it. But in a straight line, you would say $100 million a year.
Yep.
And in your income statement, which is not your cash flow statement, very important, huge difference.
So they're the half-year summaries and the annual report
This
numbers.
is for taxation purposes. To get to your profit number at the end of the day, you would chalk off $100 million in depreciation.
Yeah, but it doesn't say you've spent on EBITDA. It doesn't say you've spent $1 billion that year.
On the cash flow statement, you would see in the investment section, $1 billion go out in year 0, but no other payments over the next 10 years because you're not actually spending anything over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
but when they're talking EBITDA, it's not counted like that you've spent that billion. It's only saying that you've spent 100 million in the first year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's
EBITDA.
why it makes it look better.
Yeah, and it's only a sort of intermediate proxy for cash flow. That's why people use it, because it's a very quick and easy proxy for cash flow, whereas, free cash flow, for instance, which is a much better metric, it's not as accessible. Companies won't be as forthcoming with it, or if they are, it's, adjusted or underlying or yada yada with asterisk next to it.
Beautiful, mate, because it's like this is the foundation of the show. If I can get the finance dumb cunt like me to understand it, the world will understand it. You've delivered it to me, JD. Thank you very much.
You forgot the other key point where you get the mining dumb cunt like me to get all the mining knowledge, mate. It goes both ways, Matty.
Oh, there's DCs everywhere here in different divisions. Now, we've kept the big fella. And by big fella, I mean, who else to talk about exploration, potential or skepticism? than our resident exploration guru, Ahmad.
Thanks, guys.
Mate, so we're actually in the process of doing a big bloody exploration bonanza with Ahmad, but why not utilise his experience to see what the fuck is going on in Queensland copper? Because there's some, I don't know if you call it scuttlebutt, but there's a bit of word going around. Mostly in the director's special.
Usually it's you that starts rumours, Maddie, but I might be taking the fall for either good intel or bad intel. Time will tell, but thankfully Ahmed has some context for us. So appreciate you dipping into this one little segment.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, that's the good thing about rumors, right? Like, it takes a while for them to be proven true or untrue. In the meantime, you just cash in as much as you can.
And what's a better rumor than a discovery? I mean, I'd feel a bit uneasy if it was a discovery from a microcap, but this is, a rumored discovery from, a major. Mm-hmm. But the word on the decline that we put in the director's special, not today, but yesterday, was in relation to some scuttlebutt that Anglo might be sitting on a substantial copper discovery in their in Queensland. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, Anglo's undergoing a lot of transformation at the moment. They're selling off their Australian coal, but they're keeping their copper exploration team. That's what's been reported in the AFR. Mm-hmm. And the word on the decline that came to me, which I can't verify 100%, I must admit. I trust the guy, but he's got a little bit of uncertainty about it. So we'll see. Time will be the true test. But I hear that they might have, they might be sitting on something that might be substantial, but not too many people are in the know here. But it's getting people talking, and you have a bit more context around Anglo's exploration ambitions in the region, right?
Yeah. So Anglo has had a number of copper exploration projects in Queensland for a number of years. I guess it was one of the areas that they targeted, which is kind of like the Mount Isa area. For people that know that area, you know that it's quite tightly held. You really need some new idea to go and explore, or you have to go explore very deep. And so Anglo's idea was really to go, beyond what the known belt is, and then go a little bit further towards the edges. And why that's complicated is that the edges of the Mount Isa belt are really where there's significant amounts of cover. So so you have to explore, a couple of 100 meters up to 400-500 meters in places where the top part of that cover is unprospective. It's just kind of a layer of dirt sitting on top that you have to get through to try to find the stuff that you really need to find.
Big liar.
It's a lot.
That's a bloody lot of dirt.
The size of the prize has got to be worth it to mine that, right? I mean,
that's right. And I mean, it seems like it's maybe a daunting task, but then when you think about things like in South Australia, where we have a number of copper mines, a large percentage of them are actually under the same amount of cover, roughly the same amount of cover. Olympic Dam sits under a couple of 100 meters of cover. Carrapateena is under more, probably 500-600 meters of cover before the ore body starts. Mm-hmm. So it's not. It sounds bad, but it's not a unique problem to just Isa. There's plenty of terrains in Australia that have this problem.
And there's a common feature amongst all of those is that they tend to be held by bigger companies that have the cash to punch in deeper holes.
Like it's exploring, 100 meters undercover is really expensive, let alone 500 meters undercover. And that's just largely because, our ability to image anything beyond a couple of 100 meters into the subsurface is pretty poor. So the only real way you can do it is by drilling. And so the reason why I know a little bit about what Anglo was doing in this part of the world is that there was a CRC group. So CRC are just these large Commonwealth research centers that were set up. And one of them was set up to come up with new drilling technology that would allow people to drill significantly into the subsurface. So, basically the aim of that program was to reduce the cost of drilling, say, 500 to 1,000 meter holes. And if you can do that, then, places like this, like the Isa Belt under this cover or South Australia become hugely prospective because now the cost of exploring that is much lower. So it doesnn't need an Anglo or a BHP to go explore. It can be done by, like mid-tier to even junior companies if they're well-funded. And so that CRC was called the DET CRC, so Deep Exploration Technology CRC. And they built a drilling rig, a new type of drilling rig, which is a coil tube drilling rig. Like the easiest way to explain that is like conventional drilling rigs use like rods, like kind of like a straw, a hard rod. And as you drill, you keep putting those rods in, and then that allows you to go deeper. Whereas this was going to be more like a fire hose or like a garden hose kind of thing, where it's like a coil, like a pipe, and that can be fed down the hole and drilled. Now, there's a lot of technical stuff that has to happen for this to work, but essentially what this allows you to do is it allows you to drill deeper holes cheaper. And so what Anglo really did is that they became one of the, I guess, major sponsors to try to see how well could this work in the real world. So, so it went through all of its testing, it went through all of its development in the CRC, and this was kind of like the first wave of commercializing this technology. And so Anglo picked up this ground. They identified that the best way to explore is to come up with a new drilling technology. They use this coiled tube rig to drill this part of the world. And as far as I know, they had success. They drilled into the same prospective rocks as the Isa belt under this 400 meters of cover. They intersected some sulfides, so they got positive indication that it's still mineralization continues in that part of the belt as well. But that's pretty much as far as I know. In that, I don't think they didn't get the type of results that would light up the scoreboard or anything like that. They got enough that they identified that the prospective rocks continue there, and they had positive indications. But that's about as far as I think they went. And then internally within Anglo, there were other projects that probably took their attention away. Or they had results on those projects that were probably better than this one. So that was pretty much the end of that project. And this was all around, 2021, 2022 that they would have done this.
Yeah.
So is that coil rig, does that, once it gets through the cover and into the, you'd call fresh rock, does that keep drilling through the fresh rock, or you got to use another rig?
No, you can use the same rig. It just uses a more conventional style of using drill rods rather than the tube.
Righto.
So,
So the coil bit's just to get through the cover.
Yeah, largely. And I mean, the main thing that's I guess different. This technology comes largely from the oil and gas space, where they do this a lot, or used to do it a lot, and then they went offshore, and now they have completely different setups. But what they're trying to do here is, it still gives you information out of the hole. You can put sensors, you can put things like that, but it doesn't give you the core. You often see in mineral exploration, we obviously drill a stick of core, stick of rock. It doesn't give you that, but it still gives you information out of the rock that you can use.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So, Trav, how confident are you here? After hearing that,
I think there's something there, right? Whether my word on the decline marries up to something that's a bit more recent. That there might have been another drill program in the last 6 months. I don't know, right? And I think time will tell. But at a minimum, Anglo's got some copper exploration ground in Queensland. I think they've got some both north of Isa and south of Isa.
That's right. Yeah.
I actually can't tell you with 100% certainty where my word stems from, but I think it's it's interesting, and let's we're all bullish more exploration success. We want to see discoveries happen, and if technology, helps enable more copper discoveries to be made, especially in Australia, that's a super positive thing. So,
yeah, and if they are sitting on something, is that classed as immaterial at the moment, that it wouldn't need to be disclosed?
Yeah. I mean, the size of Anglo, it's totally immaterial.
Yeah.
God,
And this is
isn't
all
that great, having everything's immaterial?
Yeah.
Fuck, it'd save on announcements. It's bloody good, eh? The admin.
And this is also another thing, you always have to cater what the definition of major discovery for an Anglo versus a junior. There is stuff probably in Anglo's portfolio that they would qualify as not even something that they get out of bed for, but that would probably be a company maker or a company, capital raiser or something like that for other companies, right?
Yeah.
But it's just that for Anglo, it doesn't, they don't skip any heartbeats for stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think, there's always this materiality that for the market, it may be something major in the sense that it opens up a new area. It allows other people to go and explore and focus their exploration in a certain way, but it may or may not be that major for a company like Anglo.
Yeah, well, if they have found something, I can pretty much guarantee it just reeks of VRIFY AI. That's probably how they've come up with it. Anglo a VRIFY power user? I'm not sure.
That's why we said not verified before. Discovery's
So
not yet
that's
verified.
okay. So I can't confirm if VRIFY AI has been used, which is probably leaning towards there's nothing exists yet. But have you ever seen a private services company for geological and AI get a research note published about it?
I cannot say that I have, Matty.
Mate, I'll bring it up here. They've had an actual Jeffrey's note showcasing. It was about AI, so it's pretty much just VRIFY, but like showcasing them as the leader in friggin' mining exploration AI technology.
If that's not the tick of approval to small miners out there, you can get research notes written about you just by using VRIFY. I reckon.
Mate, they've sexed it up. It's just like, it just shows how easily it is to visualise the AI targeting and the associated data stacks. And mate, there's even some quotes in here I'll read out from the note, which is just highlights how bloody good this is. Holy snap and duck shit, how good is VRIFY AI? Holy Mary and Joseph, it's going to be a piece of piss to find world-class deposits using VRIFY AI. And finally, fuck me sideways, I've never seen anything process geological data so fast in my life. Now, yeah, so that's just a few excerpts I pulled out, but mate, plenty more in that note. So get bloody VRIFY AI, ladies and gentlemen, and get rich.
Mad similarities between what Anglo might have done, which is, it's technology advancement that's maybe unlocked exploration success here because of drilling. But, that's literally what VRIFY does too.
Yeah. So it's VRIFY's probably been involved. Righto, stay tuned, money miners, because this will be the first place to talk about it. First place to talk about the word on the decline. First place to talk about the actual word.
Sign up to the director special. Go to moneyofmine.com. If you're not there, but you want more of my fake rumours in the future, just get on board.
It's in the show notes.
If you're not there, give yourself an uppercut.
And if you give me a rumour on anything, I will put it in there.
I will too. Good stuff. Right, next up, Resolute and Ravenswood, which EMR got from Resolute.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So
she flies under the radar, this one, in private equity, not listed, the Ravenswood gold mine.
Yeah.
Trying to flog her off, hey?
Yeah, we'll see for how long. So Ravenswood, gold mine in Queensland, Resolute, an African gold miner, and Resolute were the sellers of the Ravenswood mine to, as you say, Matty, EMR Capital. So Resolute announced late yesterday that they've received $30 from Ravenswood. They've also structured the contingent payments. There's a lot of these terms associated with the sales, and it looks like a bit of tidying up is going in the background. So a lot of these terms were sort of contingent on Ravenswood producing 500,000 ounces, and now they've kind of exceeded that. And they're these contingent payments based on the gold price exceeding certain levels between Aussie 1900 and 2100. So
I haven't looked at this deal in a long time, but I'll tell you what I can remember about it.
Tell me.
I remember that so Resolute sold it to EMR. EMR paid $100 million actual cash, but it was a $300 million headline.
Yeah, that's right.
Headline consideration, but it was like fucking never payments, contingent consideration or gold price linked to whatever. And it's like, it's one of those ones you're like, ASX release, gold mine sold for $300 million. And you're like, oh no, it's actually $100 million.
Yeah. But they're getting a bit more cash now. So they got 30 now, but 4 years later. But another 20 to come in the door before the 30th of September. So with respect to the $50 million vendor financing, that was a note due in March of 2027, they've reset the principal amount up to $64 million to take into account the capitalised accrued interest. Now, they're going to receive 6% for the next year up until the end of June 25, and then that's going to jump to 12% payments with a maturity at the end of 2027. So I won't go into sort of all the details. There's a lot of numbers and a lot of dates being thrown around, but you do get a bit of the inference that things are being cleaned up a bit, especially with that one there talking about having a 6% for the next year and then that jumping up. So things look quite pretty in the next year, Maddie, while they might be trying to sell something or get an IPO going. And then the costs jump up a little bit. But for Resolute, things are actually getting better and better. We've spoken about them a few times. They really had a reset of the business. You can see this in probably best in a net debt waterfall chart that they show from the last 5 financial years. And there was a big drop off in and around 2022 when they just recapped the business. But they're really starting to get some positive momentum with results improving and the balance sheet improving. And this announcement today is just going to help that. The last quarter, they improved their cash position by $5 million, which doesn't sound too great, but they did pay $26 million in debt repayments in the quarter, as well as another $3 million in interest expenses in the quarter. So that's actually on the operational front, not a bad quarter. And net cash is now $33 million. So, they're now for the first time in a long time net cash as opposed to being net debt. And earthworks have started at Syama, the phase 1 expansion there. So that's going to take Syama from a bit over 200 to over 250,000 ounces per annum, with higher grade sulfide dirt coming into the mix there. Costs should drop from the 1400s range down to the 1200s. Overall production, with Mako included, is going to go from circa 350,000 ounces per annum to, over the next little while, to 400,000. So
That's huge.
it is big.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what? Okay. So that's Resolute. Looks
Yep.
like they got to come to a bit of a resolution, you'd say. What's it mean for Ravenswood, EMR? Because it's been well known that they're trying to flog it off for friggin' 600 million or something.
Probably more. Who knows? Like where gold market goes. But
Yeah.
could be
Well,
more.
I heard that number at a pub before gold went up.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. It could be a lot more now. I mean,
So, like you say, the number they'd bought it for was 300 in pretty big quotation marks there. They're paying a bit more of it over time. They also sunk a fair bit of cash into the mine itself. The number I'd read was sort of 350 million
Yeah, right.
to get it up to scratch. They recently got the mining lease renewed for another 16 years, and they've got approvals to expand the mill and the whole plant there as well. So with the rates, like I said before, things are being cleaned up, and it just makes me a bit more confident, like you say, Matty, that they're working hard to either sell the thing or IPO the thing. But
knowing
private,
EMR, they'll be exploring both at the same time, trying to maximise value.
100%.
Yeah.
And
And
we're
mind
interested
you,
to see if they
Hey,
try.
EMR need a win.
Wow, they got Kestrel underground coal mine, which
Well,
I mean, again,
they need a win to offset 29 metals.
yeah, but that's the only that's the public one we hear about. So
What else they got?
Remember that cobalt thing? Like,
Yeah.
mate, that's just fucking
Ming-
worth infinity.
Mingombe, they sold with cobalt in Zambia. Copper, they had other assets there. The harder thing about this is it's super hard to see what the returns are and everything because it's all private. So
Yeah.
we don't actually know, but
How many ounces is Ravenswood? It's like
200,000 per annum, and I think they want to.
You used to produce 500,000, eh? 500,000 ounces a year at one stage. Used to be big.
Might have done. I think they want to, like I said, they've got the green light to expand things again up to an 8 million tonne per annum plant. So
that's worth like a 200,000 ounce operation. Like we've done a lay of the land of all of the gold producers out there so many times, and a common theme amongst them is they're hungry. They need to buy ounces. They need to become more meaningful. Blah 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 blah. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to actually see it go via a trade sale instead of IPO because the environment is such that there's a lot of players who are really acquisitive and might pay top dollar. You know.
And what was
it's
the
a lot
other
of
rule?
ounces, like,
don't take private equity's bags.
So
So
you're buying something that they want to sell.
yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
They do have, rules around how they have to sort of play the game, and they at a point will be a forced seller. They want to see a return.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Matty, on the other end of the country, rocks.
Oh, Rocks Resources met results. So now, when you hear Youanmi Gold Project, it's refractory, and it's one of those ones that really never gets talked about just because it's refractory. Because we talk about M&A and everything, but it's like, well, who's going to do M&A with a refractory gold project usually?
You lack infrastructure synergies if you need different infrastructure to process it, right?
We'll talk about that, Trav. Maybe I'll start some more rumours here. So they got the Met results out because it's a old mine, but they've just taken the free milling and existing decline and everything, and the rest of it's refractory. So a couple of million ounces at 4 grams. So it's located just north of Ramelius's Penny project. I'll bring up the map there, just directly 2 tenements up from it. So they got 96% recovery for the lock cycle flotation test work. So how they did it. So they got an initial the flotation got 91% of the gold. Then they took the tail from the flotation and put that through a conventional CIL circuit. and they got another 5%. So that's
What was the grind size and what was the?
I think it was 75 micron.
Okay.
For it. But and then that's for concentrate, and I think the arsenic levels were around 2.3 to 2.7%, which is below that sort of 4% threshold for China. So that's a tick. So you can actually it's a saleable. It's a saleable concentrate at, I think it was about 50 grams a ton. Then they also did the biox treatment. So biox, that's the bugs, the bacterial oxidization process. I think they got it at Fosterville. That's what they had at Wiluna. And the overall...
Did they have it at Wiluna?
Yeah, Wiluna used to be before the concentrate thing, back in the Apex days, was the bugs, biox. Just didn't work, but didn't keep them alive. So that's where they take the flotation concentrate, and then they put that through the biox, and they got 92% recovery there. Then they tested the Albion process. So that's the ultrafine grind and then injecting supersonic oxygen. That oxidizes the bloody sulfides away. So that was 89 to 96. So essentially they've got a few options. So as we said, they can go down the concentrate route only, similar to even though this is just gold, but similar to a deflector.
Yep.
So that obviously drops the payability of the gold. So you might, I think it was in the 80s, but it's like then a bit of word on the decline I've heard you might be able to get in the 90s now for payability on the actual gold content. Lot lower capex buck because you just, do your flotation, treat your CIL, your tails, so you get a bit of gold there, and then voila, you got a saleable concentrate. They can sell the concentrate for a bit while they either they can build and ramp up either a biox or an Albion plant, which will logistically, it's obviously a lot easier but more capex to have the biox plant or an Albion plant there, because you just produce doré bars then and you just take them down to the mint. But concentrate, obviously there's a payability thing, and you got to fuck it off and ship it overseas. Yeah. So it's a bit of a...
When you're selling the con, because I remember Wiluna, they were selling their con to Russia, and that was a big issue with the sanctions and everything. So is there actually a buyer for the con with that much? Because China cut down on the arsenic content.
Yeah. So China... it was 5% threshold. I think they then reduced it to 4%.
Yeah.
And this one's 2.3 to 2.7. So it's within that limit to be saleable to China. Right. Whereas I think Wiluna was pretty high, hence it went to Russia. Don't quote me on that. So interesting. So this is out there, but being so close to Penny, 130 k's from Mount Magnet.
No. No way. No.
Couple of million ounces, chuck a biox, flotation biox plant in at Mount Magnet, use the existing crushing infrastructure, just chuck a diversion in, chuck the good shit, the free milling that way, refractory that way.
M&A with Matty is like it's
50
like
mil cost them about 80, I reckon.
It's like I think of
existing.
It's great you use the word magnet, because I think of like a footy coach, like just magnets on the board. It's like this and this together. Yes.
You got to wrap around, then you got to hot.
Here, go. That's it.
No, I like it, mate. It's
you never
creative.
know.
You never know.
You never know. But
in any case, it's been recorded. So.
It's been recorded. So over there, I'll be looking. It'd be interesting to see because they're getting the process the PFS studies from the processing mobs done to see, it's a cost benefit analysis. Is like, right, what fucking is it going to be better just to do concentrate, or what's the bloody cost benefit of building an Albion or a biox and doing it that way? So be interesting to see. PFS coming out, when is it? Bloody scheduled to be completed by end of July 24. Yeah, they just never, refractory ones never get talked about.
Except for De Grey.
Yeah, small refractory ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Good stuff, Matty.
Good on you.
Couple of partners.
Fuck, I want to go to bed. Fuck, I've slept shit all
I'll take you through this one, Matty. We're going to thank a few of the partners, mate.
Oh, the whole lot, I don't know how the fucking Prime Minister feels, because Jesus Christ, when you got the country on your shoulders, geez, it takes it out of you, JD. Fuck me sideways.
Keep doing what you're doing, mate.
Righto, partners.
VRIFY, GetWet Solutions, DSI Underground, Silverstone, CRE Insurance, WA Waterboards, Brooks Airways, and K-Drill. And lastly, Matty, use
Spark. I was
Use
just
Spark.
testing you.
Use Spark.
I'm getting horizontal. I'm like,
Trav, your head's been fucking chopped off nearly the whole time because you're like slouching now.
I can TC.
Rhodes is like, you're getting horizontal.
Oh, you're just like, yeah, so anyway.
Hootaroo.
The information contained in this episode of Money of Mine is of general nature only and does not take into account the objectives, financial situation or needs of any particular person. Before making any investment decision, you should consult with your financial advisor and consider how appropriate the advice is to your objectives, financial situation and needs.